Now, most of you that watch this channel know that I recently, how do we put this? I recently had a little sojourn, a little trip down to South Florida. Had some time there, learned some things there, and didn't end the way that I would have wanted it to end. And still smarts a little bit, to be frank with you. And you sit back and you begin to evaluate. You're like, why was I even there? What was even going on? And you begin to, if you're smart, do some inventory, ask some questions, think some things. And so I began to ask, self, what was that all about anyway? And then I began to recall some of the conversations I had with a person who's now my very good friend down there, and a conversation we had just the other day since I've been back. And I started thinking about some of the things that were said to me. And I started thinking that I might have missed some things somewhere along the way, and that there are things that maybe I need to ponder. And maybe that was part of the reason, of the rationale of why I was down there and what I was doing there. Because you know me, you've heard me, you've listened to me for quite a while, some of you, and you know that by my estimation, for what it's worth, Bible college graduate, 20 years a minister, 100,000 hours of studying the biblical scriptures. And I've determined that, and I think with pretty close, and with some good reason, that the scriptures are about 75% dung and about 25% diamond. But I was asked a question, and I'd never pondered it really seriously until like an hour ago, to be frank with you. If the Bible does contain 25% diamonds, then why do I spend 100% of my time on the 75% that's dung? Because if it has 25% diamond, then with the amount of people in this world that hold the Bible near and dear to them, that base their faith and their doctrine and their practice upon it, if 25% of it has some diamond in it, if 25% of it is diamond, then why would I overlook that 25%? 75% of it is dung. Okay, we get that you believe that, but why spend all of your time on the dung? If it is, and it arguably is, the most published book in human history, there's probably at least a couple billion, almost half the people on the planet hold it near and dear. At least 2.5, 3 billion people. And if it is 25% diamond, I'm not saying don't spend time on the dung and let people know about the dung, but what about the diamond? So I'm going to do a little experiment here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to begin to talk a little bit about the diamonds that are in the dung of the New Testament. And I figured I'd start at the dungiest place that I could imagine. And of course, the dungiest place that I could imagine would be with the writings of the Apostle Paul. And they really start about Romans. That's not chronological, but again, we're trying to contextualize ourselves. So if billions of people believe the Bible, and if 25% of the Bible does contain diamonds, then why not, in the interests of balance, offer some diamond from the New Testament? I don't think there's any risk of people thinking Jeff's going soft. I don't think there's any risk of people thinking Jeff's going back to church. So let's get into this. Let's look at a little diamond in the New Testament. What do you say? With all of that preamble, let's look at a little diamond in the New Testament. And let's go to the dungiest part of the New Testament and see if we can't pull out some diamonds. Well, it took me about 16 verses to get to some diamond, ladies and gentlemen. It took me about 16 verses to get to some diamond. Romans chapter 1, verse number 16, Paul says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it's the power of God unto salvation for everyone that believeth. End. Right there. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation for everyone that believeth. Well, Jeff, that's clearly dung. Well, is it? Is it really? Let's look at what this really says and what this can really mean in the lives and the hearts of people. Let's look at this. And I had to look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to bury the lead. I am not ashamed. What does this word ashamed mean? I'm not ashamed. I have not misplaced my confidence. I am not personally humiliated. I'm not disgraced. And I have not wrongly identified with something. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I left the church actually left it about 2000, probably by 2005, maybe 2007, 2008. I was done with the church, done. But was I done with what is called by Paul the gospel of the Christ? Am I done with the gospel of the Christ? So let's take a step back first and let's see what is the gospel. What's the gospel? Well, we think of the gospel and we think of it's the preaching, it's the teaching, it's the Bible. I don't have my Bible here to wave around. It's over there on my shelf. But what is the gospel really? The gospel, ladies and gentlemen, is the good news. The good news, it's literally, ladies and gentlemen, literally, look at this, literally God's good news. It's the good news of the divine. It's the good news of the Father. It's the good news of the Mother. And I have to ask myself, do I still believe in the good news of the Father? Of course I do. Do I still believe in the good news of the Mother? Of course I do. Do I still believe in the good news of the divine? And the answer is yes, I do. Still believe in the good news of the good news. It's not the gospel. That's not really the word. The word is the good news. I still do believe in the good news. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, as we go back to this scripture that we're looking at, I'm not ashamed of the good news. Remember this? As I sit here and I review and I think back, the good news of the divine, do I feel disgraced by the good news of the divine? No. Do I feel like my misplaced my confidence in the good news of the divine? No. Do I feel like I believed a lie in believing the good news of the divine? No. Am I ashamed or personally humiliated by the good news of the divine? No. Am I disgraced by the good news of the divine? No. Do I feel like I've wrong identified with something? No. I still believe in the good news of the divine. I am not ashamed of the good news of the divine. Why not? Why not? Well, because what it is, what is it? It's the power, miraculous power, miraculous might, miraculous strength, ability to perform. Are you against power, my friend? Are you against might, my friend? Are you against strength, my friend? Are you against the ability to perform, my friend? No, I'm not. I'm still for power, might, and strength. I'm still for the ability to perform. I'm still for the application of the inherent abilities given us by the divine. I'm still for it. And not only am I still for it, but it is the power of the divine. This word's the divine, and that's the word in the New Testament for the God of the Bible, not for the Lord. The Lord would be Kairos or Kyrios. Here, Theo, that's the Elohim. It's the power of God unto salvation. Oh, well, Jeff, it's salvation. You know we don't need salvation. You know we've got the spirit of divinity within. Well, what does the word really mean? It's the power of the divine for deliverance. Do you ever need some deliverance in your life? I'm going to guess yes. It's the power for welfare. Do you really need some good welfare in your life? I'm going to guess yes. It's the power for prosperity. Do you need some prosperity in your life? I'm going to guess yes. It's the power for deliverance. Do you need any deliverance in your life? I'm going to guess yes. Preservation? I'm guessing yes. Safety? I'm guessing yes. Do you need to be delivered out of destruction and into the safety of the divine? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, you do. Yes, you do. So as I sit back and I look at the dungiest part of the New Testament, I'm not ashamed of the good news of the dynamic power of the divine to deliver us, empower us, prosper us, heal us. And here's the good part, cousins. It's not just for someone. It's for everyone. Oh, but there's always a catch, Jeff. Yeah, there is a catch. There's a catch. And what is the catch? You got to believe. You got to believe, you got to have faith in, you got to put trust in, you've got to entrust it. And I have to sit back and look at myself in the mirror and say, self, if, let's go back to this so I can show it to you as I read it. I go back to this and I say, self, if you still believe in the power of the message of the divine to set free, to heal, deliver, to prosper, to make happy, and that you still believe this power of the divine is available for anyone and everyone that believes, that has faith, that puts trust in, that puts confidence in, the just will live by faith. Let's look at that word live right there because it's important. The just will live by faith. What was it in about 117? They will live by faith. Oh, I'm about to tell on myself here. The righteous by faith will live, be alive, experience God's gift of life. It's Zoe, 22222, life of both physical and spiritual existence. If there is 25% of the Bible that's diamond, and if this 25% is capable, and I just picked one verse out of the dungiest part, if that verse is capable of bringing life, both physically and spiritually, into somebody's life, into somebody's existence, into somebody's being, then why would I want to do anything if there is power for life in this to people, and all they have to do is believe it? Why do I want to do or say or be anything that would impair their ability to believe it? If this is going to get the power of the divine into somebody's life potentially, who the hell is Jeffrey Darty to cause somebody to not have the faith by which they could live divine, sovereign, and free in? So while I'm not saying that I'm not going to continue to point out the dung, I'm not going to continue to help people have information to make a more balanced decision, I don't think that I'm going to be able to anymore, now that this person who I'm not particularly happy with has put this in my mind and I can't get it out of there. You know, I was just talking about Hermetic principles. One of them is about balance. If you're going to be balanced, and my friend Halo Marquis says, if it's a rule for one thing, it's a rule for everything. And one of my rules is I need to be balanced. And if I need to be balanced in teaching of anything, I need to be balanced in teaching of everything. So why wouldn't you be balanced in the teaching of the New Testament, the Bible? You don't want to spend all of your time on the dung when there's still diamond, ladies and gentlemen. So I have to say this. I've been reminded of this, and I'm not really super happy with it, but I have been reminded that even though I'm, 10, 11 years out of this, even though, that's interesting. I don't think I'm going to say it, but that's interesting that what just came to my mind. But I am not, ladies and gentlemen, I have to realize that I am not disgraced by the teaching of the good news within the New Testament. Don't feel like I've misplaced my confidence in the good news of the teaching of the God in the New Testament. I do not believe I'm ashamed. I don't believe I'm humiliated. I don't believe I'm wrongly identified with identifying with the good news. That's what gospel is. The good news, which is the power, might, and strength, the ability to perform, the application of the inherent ability of the divine, which is there, ladies and gentlemen, to provide welfare, prosperity, deliverance, and preservation for every single person that exercises faith and confidence and persuades themselves of its truth. Gulp. I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It is the power of God unto salvation, if you let me literally render it like I just did. That just goes to show that you can teach an old dog new tricks if the old dog is willing to learn new tricks. So bow wow, friends. Bow wow, cousins. This old dog is learning some new tricks, and I'm learning to balance. So yeah, looks like there is some good news within the New Testament. There's probably some good news within the Old Testament. And yeah, I still think it's 75% dung. And yeah, I'm still going to spend some time on that, but I can no longer continue to overlook the 25% that's diamond, because, cousin, I've said it 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and I'll continue to say it. We may differ on who Jesus was. We may differ if he lived, if he died, if he rose from the dead. We may differ on a lot of things, but one thing we don't differ on, me and anybody that calls himself a Christian, do not differ on the message of Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. The message of Jesus does lead to life and life more abundantly. That we agree on. That's a diamond. And this really is New Cosmic Knowledge. I really am Jeffrey Daugherty. And we really are still the last generation of real humans. And can we afford to walk by diamonds? I don't think so. Let's notice all the diamonds, cousins. We are the last generation of real humans. Let's pick them all up and let's get busy.